music is really quite small in the scheme of things. I'm sure there are scenes that, like, a lot of jazz musicians don't really know rock musicians and don't know classical musicians, but there are a lot of musicians who are interested in that, all those things. And I think maybe that's a scene in itself, and maybe it's just, you know, a few hundred people around the planet, but, you know, and you put records out, and if people are interested, you keep your ear to the ground and you hear new things, and so people keep in kind of abreast of what's happening, you know. We don't live in the same city. I live in Berlin, Chris lives in Sydney, and Lloyd, the bass player, lives in the Blue Mountains, about 2 hours out of Sydney. So we don't see each other all the time. And when we set time aside to work, like when I come to Australia, we do a tour, or we do tours of Europe, we set aside these periods, and I think we use the time really well, and we don't kind of fritter away time doing a gig here, a gig there, a project here. It's like we treat the time kind of preciously. So I think that's kind of helped, because we don't like live in each other's pockets. The other thing is just the nature of the music. I think without realizing it, we've come up with a way of playing where we can draw on lots of different styles and lots of different sort of types of material, and what we do with it is sort of the style of the next. It's the sort of process. So outside of the next, we do lots of different projects. I guess we have things that we're interested in, and then new things that come into our musical life. So it keeps the music very open-ended. So it's there's always new possibilities while still sounding like the next. I think that those things are maybe the most key to why we keep doing it. It keeps seeming really fresh to us. I mean, it's an interesting point, this sort of binary thing between improvisation and composition, and I don't really buy into that personally. To me, improvising is sort of like a tool, one tool of many that you can use to create music, to compose music. What we call improvised music, it's sort of composed on the spot in a collaborative sort of way with people at a certain time. Yeah, it's just another thing. Like, I mean, you can compose music using tonality and using rhythm, and you can use alternatives to that. I know some people think that if it's just made up on the spot and it's not written down, that it's not really a work, but I don't buy into that idea. I mean, most music in the world is never written down. So, but then again, maybe it's not improvised, maybe it's handed down and then pieces are taught by sort of ear to people, but improvising is a tool. I like listening to the radio stations that will play a variety of music that I might never have heard before. I kind of like the idea someone else will curate the listening experience for me, because if you only listen to the stuff you know all the time, you don't really get surprised or hear new music. So I really like just turning on a radio station, usually on the internet, one of these stations around the world, and just seeing what's there. That's mostly how I listen to music. I have sort of favourite things that I do come back to every now and then, like listening to John Coltrane is a great thing, Miles Davis, listening to Fela Kuti, listening to reggae basically, some classical musicians, like composers like Morton Feldman or Jerry Hunt. But yeah, I do like being surprised. Well, we don't know what we're going to play tonight because we haven't played it yet. We know that we'll go on stage and play our respective instruments. And what follows, I think we have to be sensitive to the way the instruments sound to us and how they feel to play, the sound of the room, how we're feeling at the time. We really literally walk on stage, someone has a very simple idea and they start, and then we kind of all find our place in it. And then that's sort of when the music starts, as it's unfolding. So we don't really know. We know the basic parameters and we know it'll sound like the next, but the specific details or things like the energy level of it or the tempo or the basic feeling remains to be seen until tonight.